Warning: from death-defying speeds to bone-jarring rides, these bikes are no less than nightmares. These bikes are so evil, they'll make even the most experienced riders quake in their boots. These bikes were designed to push riders to the limit and beyond. Prepare to be shocked by the 7 most evil motorcycles known to mankind. But before we dive in, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. On number 7, we have diabolical 1981 Honda CR450. Oh boy, the diabolical 1981 Honda CR450 was one mean machine. With its supercharged engine, it was like strapping a rocket to your rear end and hoping for the best. And let's not forget about its suspension, or lack thereof. It was like riding a jackhammer down a bumpy road, with every bump and jolt felt directly in your bones. Now, if you were an inexperienced rider, you were basically signing up for a death wish. It was like trying to tame a wild bull with no prior rodeo experience. Many riders would try their luck with the diabolical 1981 Honda CR450, only to end up flat on their backs in the hospital. But even for experienced riders, this bike was no joke. It demanded respect and skill. Even then, it was like trying to play a game of Operation with giant clunky gloves on. One wrong move and it was game over. In the end, the diabolical 1981 Honda CR450 was a bike that separated the men from the boys, or the women from the girls. It was a challenge that only the bravest and most skilled riders could conquer. So if you were feeling brave, or maybe a little foolish, give it a shot. Just don't say we didn't warn you. And then we have another bike with a dark side. This one is a real danger. On number 6, we have Kawasaki 750 H2 Mach 4 Widowmaker. The Kawasaki 750 H2 Mach 4 was not a bike for the faint of heart. With its sleek and powerful design, it was the epitome of what every speed enthusiast dreamed of. But it also had a dark side, one that could leave you scarred, or worse, a widow. The bike's engine was like a superhero with the ability to produce an insane amount of power that can make your heart race and your palms sweat. But like every superhero, it had its kryptonite. It had a frame and brakes that couldn't keep up with its power. This meant that inexperienced riders were more likely to end up in the hospital than on the podium. For those who dared to ride the Kawasaki 750 H2 Mach 4, it was a test of their courage and skill. Every turn was a gamble, every bump a potential disaster. It was a bike that demanded respect and skill, and those who couldn't handle it were quickly weeded out. The Kawasaki 750 H2 Mach 4 was like the bad boy of the motorcycle world. It was sexy, powerful, and capable of giving you the ride of your life. However, it was also unpredictable and dangerous. If you were brave enough to ride it, you were in for one hell of a ride. But if you weren't, you were better off sticking to a tricycle. There's another motorcycle that will give you the rush, but with some fractures as a gift. On number 5, we have Suzuki 400. It's like trying to tame a wild stallion, except the stallion is a motorcycle and you're not a cowboy. The Suzuki 400 was not a bike for the faint of heart, and it didn't discriminate when it came to taking down riders. In fact, it was often inexperienced riders who were drawn to the bike's sleek design and impressive speed capabilities that ended up in the most trouble. Riding the Suzuki 400 was like walking a tightrope. One wrong move and you could find yourself in a heap on the ground, wondering what went wrong. The bike's power was undeniable, but it came with a steep learning curve. Those who didn't take the time to master its nuances were in for a bumpy ride. But for those who were up for the challenge, the Suzuki 400 was a thrilling ride that provided a rush like no other. It was a bike that demanded your attention and your respect. Also, those who were able to conquer it emerged as true motorcycle champions. Up next on our list is a well-known brand, although at the time it was better known for its potential for danger. On number 4, we have Harley-Davidson 250 MX. The 1975 Harley-Davidson 250 MX. This bike was as agile as a tank and as delicate as a bull in a china shop. It's like someone thought, you know what would be great for motocross? A bike that weighs as much as a small elephant and has a suspension of a rocking chair. And yet, there were still riders out there who thought they could make it work. It's like they were saying, sure, this bike may be outdated and impractical, but I'm a motocross master. I can handle anything. Famous last words, my friends. The Harley-Davidson 250 MX was a bike that demanded respect and a whole lot of experience. If you were inexperienced, it was like stepping into a minefield with a blindfold on. You might as well have been trying to ride a unicycle through quicksand. But for those brave enough to try, it was a challenge like no other. It was like saying, I know this bike is a disaster waiting to happen, but I'm going to ride it anyway, because I'm a rebel and rules don't apply to me. And hey, if you managed to make it through a race on that thing, you were a true legend, or maybe just really lucky. Looking back, it's almost comical to think that anyone ever thought the Harley-Davidson 250 MX was a good idea for motocross. But hey, sometimes you have to learn the hard way that not all bikes are created equal. And for those who tried and failed, at least they have a hilarious story to tell at parties. But there was one motorcycle that had riders drooling quite literally. Curious to know which one it was? Well, before we reveal the answer, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. On number 3, we have the 1984 Husqvarna 125CR. The 1984 Husqvarna 125CR was a true beast of a bike. This bad boy was so powerful and light that it made experienced riders drool with excitement. But for those less skilled, it was like trying to tame a wild animal. One of the biggest issues with the Husqvarna 125CR was its suspension. Sure, it was fast and agile, but when it came to serious racing, it was about as useful as a unicycle in a marathon. The result? Riders were left flailing around on rough terrain, bouncing like a pinball and crashing like there was no tomorrow. But hey, that didn't stop riders from giving it their all on the Husqvarna 125CR. They saw it as a challenge, a chance to prove their skills and leave the competition in the dust. And for those who could actually handle the bike's power and finesse, the rewards were beyond compare. Unfortunately, the rest of us mere mortals, the Husqvarna 125CR was a little too much to handle. It demanded skills and experience that most people could only dream of having. And when inexperienced riders tried to push the bike to its limits, it was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. It was painful to watch and even more painful to experience. 1985 Yamaha VMAX. Riding the VMAX was like dancing in a tornado. One wrong move and you were done for. Trying to control the VMAX was like trying to wrangle a wild boar. It was always one step ahead of you, and you were lucky if you could just hold on for dear life. If you thought motorcycles couldn't be resurrected, think again. There's one brand that managed to come back from the dead. On number 2, we have Greeves motorcycles. Picture this. You're cruising down the highway on your Greeves motorcycle, feeling like a total badass. But as you hit the brakes to slow down, you suddenly feel like you've been kicked in the chest by a mule. That's right, the Greeves front braking system was notorious for its kickback. It was even worse thanks to the laughably bad front suspension system. Talk about a wild ride. Despite these challenges, Greeves motorcycles managed to stay afloat for over 2 decades before meeting its fiery demise in 1977. But don't worry, the Greeves name was later revived by Richard Deal, who thankfully had the foresight to upgrade the suspension system. Looking back, it's hard to imagine why Greeves didn't prioritize a better suspension system from the start. Maybe they were just trying to add a little excitement to their riders' lives, like a twisted amusement park ride. But let's be real, nobody wants to feel like they're being thrown around on a pogo stick while riding a motorcycle. Lessons learned, Greeves. There's another bike that was so popular it seemed like a reliable brand. Well, it was a bit of a death trap. On number 1, we have Honda C50, C70, C90, C110. The Honda Cub, or as I like to call it, the Cuddly Cub, was a popular ride in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and well, you get the picture. This little motorcycle was so ubiquitous that you couldn't go 2 blocks without spotting one zipping around town. But like any popular thing, it had its flaws. For starters, the Cub had a tendency to throw a hissy fit and lock up its wheels when riders shifted down too quickly. That's right, it was like a moody teenager who didn't like being told what to do. So unless you wanted to skid into a ditch, you had to be gentle with the gear shift. Then there was the issue of the Cub's suspension. It was so soft and squishy that it felt like you were riding on a marshmallow. Great for cruising around on smooth roads, but not so great when you hit a bump or a pothole. You'd bounce around like a popcorn kernel in a hot pan and lose control faster than a toddler with a sugar rush. But hey, not all Cubs were created equal. Some were smoother than a jazz saxophonist's melody, and others were more reliable than your favorite pair of jeans. So let's not write off the cuddly Cub as a bad ride just because of a few flaws. With responsible operation and maintenance, it could be the perfect companion for cruising around town. Just make sure you pack some marshmallows for the ride. What are your thoughts on the cuddly Cub? Have you seen or ridden one before? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more exciting videos.